Just Imagine, a new podcast series by Imagine Theatre.
Hello again, how are you? My name is Martin Ballard. Welcome to the third episode of a brand new series of podcasts from Imagine Theatre. In each episode, we take you behind the scenes at the company, meeting the people who create and star in Imagine Theatre shows. And I have to start by saying thank you so much for your kind comments about the first two episodes.
For more information, go to their website at www.imaginetheatre.co.uk.
Now, in episode 2, we met the Scottish actor, writer and director Eric Potts. This time, I'm delighted to say that my guest is another Scot, the choreographer and performer who's appeared in everything from Mary Poppins to Gypsy in the West End and choreographed shows like The Bodyguard on stage to The Voice on television. She is Jane McMurtrie. How are you, Jane?
I'm very well, Martin. Lovely to hear your voice.
I have to say, though, I didn't do the full name. I didn't do the whole double-barreled surname thing because you're married, of course, aren't you? Congratulations, although it was some time ago.
Well, it was about 2.5 years now, but I've kept my Jane McMurtrie just for my stage name. Too many names is too complicated in this industry, so I think McMurtrie is more than enough.
Tell us a bit about your background, first of all, where you grew up and how you got interested in theatre and performing in the first place.
I grew up in Scotland in a very small village called Bonnybridge, and just weirdly, no one in my family is connected to the theatre industry in any way, but I think I came out of the womb dancing and singing, as my mum and dad always said. I was really quick at walking, and I think by my first birthday I sang Happy Birthday to myself, so I think it was always in me. I think when I was about 2.5 years old, singing in the rain, my mum, she loved the old musicals and it was on TV, and I just said I want to do that, and my mum was like, okay. So she sort of, as a lot of parents now, they send their children to dancing. I actually asked at the age of 2.5, can I go to dance? So I went to my local dance school, which was Stenhouse School of Dance, and from there the love just began. And I think, I had a flair for it without even knowing it, and it was things like when my mum and dad used to come and see me in the summer dance display. They were like, okay, we love our child, and maybe we're being biased, but she seems to be really good. And I wasn't ever looking at the side to get the steps off the teachers or anything, so I just had a flair for it, but I loved it. I just absolutely loved it with a passion, and from there it was just something that developed. I went to acrobatics, ballet, tap, modern, and I just lived and breathed it, really. Whenever anything that was happening at school, a school play, I would always be, in there. I was Mary in the school. I think it was a survey recently. If you played Mary in the school nativity, you were more likely to be successful in the theatre industry. So that did happen. So just from there, my passion and my love for it grew, and it was as if this isn't just a hobby. And I knew very, very early on, at the age of 10, that I wanted to do this as a career. And when I was 11 years old, I auditioned for the Dance School of Scotland at Knightswood Secondary, which is in Glasgow, and I was successful. And basically, it's a vocational school. You get all your academics, but you also get training in the arts as well. So it's a little bit like the schools that they get in London, like Italia Conti, that sort of thing. So at 11 years old, I moved away from home, and on Monday to Friday, I trained at the Dance School of Scotland, and then I would come home at weekends. So my mum and dad literally were like, she is really serious about this, because she moved away from home at 11 years old. And then obviously that training, it was absolutely incredible training. When I was younger, I had that dream, as probably a lot of little girls do, of being a ballerina. But very early on, I knew my physique wasn't right, and I wasn't going to end up being a ballerina. So my love of musical theatre sort of grew from there. And as I said, my mum always loved the old musicals, so we would sit and watch all like Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, Singing in the Rain, all those incredible shows. And my idol was Gene Kelly, so I really just looked up to him and knew all his movies. So when I was 17, I auditioned through Knightswood. I managed to get the auditions for colleges down in London. I auditioned for Lane Theatre Arts and London Studio, and I was successful in both, and I decided to go to Lane Theatre Arts and continue my training down in London. So I was very young, I was 17 when I moved down to London, and I did my 3 years training there, and from there I was ready. That was me. And I was out, and I was, again, very lucky.
So when did you realise, apart from the dance, of course, from a very early age, when did you realise you had a voice as well, and that you could act?
When I was really young, I always loved to dance, but I always loved to sing and act as well. And actually, I used to do competitions and festivals, which was more solo work. But through my dance school, there was the local children's theatre that I used to go to every Sunday, and they would put a pantomime on every Christmas at the Falkirk Town Hall, which was actually, it was incredible. I think back now, the opportunities that we had, and it was televised every Christmas.
Wow.
And it was STV that it would be broadcast on, which was like the Scottish television. And I was 7 years old when I did my first panto, and that was the first time that I was sort of involved in such a huge ensemble of people. I just absolutely loved it, and that was with like the love of acting, and not just dancing, but I was singing and acting as well. And that's really where that sort of area, the acting and singing, started. And then obviously getting more serious about it when I went to Knightswood. In my last year of Knightswood, they gave us singing lessons, and we had more theory on musical theatre and things like that. So by the time I went down to London, I definitely had a lot of experience on stage in shows. But from 7 years old, I think from 7 to 12, I did that panto every year, and you just gained so much experience from doing those shows. And panto is like the best way to launch you into that, because it's so expressive and it's so fun and upbeat as well. So I loved all that. So that's really where I was first introduced to that sort of thing.
And what about going to the theatre as a child? Was your first theatre experience in the audience at a panto as well?
Yes, I think it would have been. Yeah, I think, again, my mum and dad, even though they weren't involved in the theatre, like they didn't know much about the theatre industry, as well being in Scotland, but Scotland is crazy for pantos. And I don't know if you've ever seen a panto in Scotland.
No, I
Martin,
haven't. No.
It's a different vibe, but it's brilliant. And they used to take me and my brother, actually the whole family. There would be my aunt and uncle, my gran and granddad. We would all go and see panto, and probably from the age of like 3, 4, we went to see panto in Glasgow at the SECC, which was just incredible. So I was brought into panto very, very early on and loved it.
Were you one of those kids who got up for the song sheet or something like that?
What do you think, Martin?
I think you were, weren't you?
Of course. I was like, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, definitely. My brother was absolutely not, like, hiding in his seat, and I would be the opposite. I'd be like, I want to do it. So definitely. And I think I was in a panto years and years later, and my niece, she was 7 or 8 at the time, and I made her get up. She actually did want to get up to do the song sheet, but we got her up for that as well. So yeah, I loved all that. I was definitely an audience participator throughout the whole, shouting my lungs out the whole show. For sure.
Now, you've done so many different things since you finished training, but the West End list alone is incredible, and lots of shows that people will have seen. I saw Gypsy, for instance, which was just amazing, with Imelda Staunton. When was the first big job that you got?
It's so weird, because I think, I cherish every job that I do, and you learn something different from every job. And obviously I will always remember when I was 19 years old and I was just about to graduate, and I had got Greece on tour. It was the UK tour, and I'll never forget that, because that sort of launched my career, and it launched me into the industry. But I would say that my, and this was like grafting away, and I got my first West End original show when I was 22, and it was Tonight's the Night, which was the Ben Elton wrote and directed the musical, and it was the Rod Stewart musical, and it was at the Victoria Palace, and it was my first West End show, but it was an original cast as well, so which was something that I wasn't familiar to, and we were creating it, so that was a big deal. And I was still so young, but there was such like very experienced people. Stephen Mear, it was my first time that he was choreographing the show. It was the first time I was introduced to Stephen. So I would say that was the first time I thought, wow.
Yeah.
You know, because I'd done a couple of tours before then, which was fantastic, but this was the first West End gig. So I thought, wow, this is a big deal. So yeah, that was probably the first time that I thought, I've sort of made it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. In recent years, you've originated some brand new musicals, worked on projects like Groundhog Day, for instance, and contemporary musicals like The Producers and Legally Blonde. But how were your folks, how did your family feel when you were in shows like Oklahoma and Fiddler on the Roof? Because they were the sort of shows that your mum would love.
Oh my goodness, when my mum found out, well, I wasn't actually in Oklahoma, so I choreographed, myself and Matt Cole, we choreographed Oklahoma at Chichester Festival Theatre, which is just I would, if anyone ever gets the chance to work there, please do. But when I told my mum we were doing Oklahoma, I think it's her favourite musical, so she was thrilled. And the fact it was in summer to come to Chichester as well, she came with my aunt, and they just came for a few days and spent a few days in Chichester, which is beautiful by the sea, and yeah, absolutely just loved it. And same with, she loved Mary Poppins as well, those sort of shows that I've done that we grew up with. So yeah, that was really, really special for her as well, to see that, and to see that I'd created that, to recreate something like that. And she knew all the music, so it was lovely for her.
Yeah. I guess as well, you know how much hard work you have to put in to get anywhere in the business, let alone the West End stage. But, you know, when you're on stage in something like Mary Poppins, you must have to pinch yourself sometimes to really think it's happening.
I think growing up in Scotland and the way that, you know, the training that we had, I've always kept my feet on the ground, and I've always been a grafter, and I've always thought, even like having 3-4 jobs, I still need to work so hard, and you never stop, you know, you never stop thinking, oh, I can just relax now. So I've always been that sort of person. But you know, you do have those, and I think Mary Poppins definitely was a show. We did it was at the Prince Edward Theatre. It was just a stunning theatre, and just that show every night when I did Step in Time, which was my favourite number, I was launched on a chimney, and I was quite high up, and I had to stand, and we had to be really static, and the set came on automation wise. I would be brought on from stage right, and you would just see this full audience. I think it was like 2,000 seater, and it's a pinch me moment. It was like, wow, this is my job. How lucky am I to be able to do that every night? So yeah, for sure, that was definitely an experience for me to be in that show. There's
a link there as well to Stephen Mear, as there was with Gypsy. Was he an influence? And where did your sort of career as a choreographer take off from?
Well, Stephen certainly was an influence for me. He's just, as well as being so talented, so creative, he's so generous and so lovely as a person. I know that you've spoke to Stephen before, but he is just incredible, and he definitely opened my eyes up. He gave me my first West End job. He believed in me, and he's the sort of person as well, he's very loyal. So I've worked for Stephen numerous times. He'll also just say, Jane, you're not right for this one, which I love as well. He's very honest, which I like. But he definitely opened my eyes up, and I don't think anyone does old school as well as Stephen Mear. So I learned so much from him. My eyes were open to the choreography. When I did Legally Blonde, I was originally in the show at the Savoy as dance captain and swing, and I covered Brooke as well in the show. And that show was the first time, after it closed, I was asked to go to Australia and be associate choreographer, and it was the first time I'd been given that title. So it was that was the first experience I had. They flew me over to Australia, and I had to teach the show to the Australians. So that was my first taster of that sort of thing, and I knew that that's the direction that I wanted to go in. And then from there, things started to develop. And then I did Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which was, I was still dance captain, but still we did workshops with the choreography as well, so I was starting to expand in that sense. And then when I did Gypsy, I was resident choreographer, and that was the big one for me, really, where I took a step back and I took myself off stage so that I could, because I was actually resident choreographer and I was children's director as well on the show, so I was on the other side, and that was the first time that my eyes were open to that, and that's sort of where the choreography really grew from there.
And that show was just incredible. The theatre is just beautiful as well, and many people talk about Imelda Staunton. I think I knew how good she was, but she still blew me away. That's how incredible the performance was.
She changed the way I think and the way I approach, and even with choreography, even the way I approach my choreography, because she's such a good actor. That's why I think she was such a force on this show, because she came in, because sometimes musicals, you know, there's the music, there's the dancing, that can sort of overwhelm everything, but actually ultimately we're storytellers, and it comes down to the acting, and if the acting's not there, then it's not believable, and that's what she did. And the way she did it in rehearsals was just, I sat and just absorbed like a sponge everything she did in rehearsals, the way she approached the script, with the way she approached the way that she built that character. And really what was inspiring was every single night, and we did that show for 9 months, and she did it without a holiday. There was no holidays in that 9 months. She did the same performance 8 shows a week, every single week, without fail. And it was, and the way she said it was just like, well, I'm at the top of the pyramid. If I'm not giving it, then it filters down. Martin, to watch that every night, how can you not be inspired by that? So it was an incredible experience, and something I'll never ever forget. In
terms of television, because you've done a bit of that, I mentioned The Voice at the beginning as well. Was that another door that opened once you'd start doing choreography?
Actually, The Voice came around because a choreographer that I'd worked for, Karen Bruce, I had done Footloose, The Wedding Singer, Annie Get Your Gun. I'd done quite a few jobs for Karen, and she was a choreographer on The Voice. It was minimal choreography, but she asked me to come in and just help her out and assist on that. So that was my first sort of into the TV world, because I hadn't really done much of that before. I'd done like Children in Need and those sort of things, but on a TV show like The Voice, it's very, very different from theatre, so I was sort of opened up to that. And then obviously Karen, from there, that's how I got into Bodyguard through that. So yeah, I enjoyed that experience of the TV side, but I think I'm always a theatre girl at heart.
So here's the thing, I mean, all the things that we've talked about, you've talked as well about your work ethic and the fact that you never sort of rest on your laurels. You're always looking to do more and to do more and to do more. How much of an impact did it have on you when COVID-19 arrived and so much of that work would just literally dry up?
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about the choreography. We had just done Fiddler, and I was associate choreographer on Fiddler, but my choreography career was just starting to take off. I had booked 2 choreography jobs that year and a couple of other associate choreography working with Matt Cole, and in the blink of an eye, all 4 jobs gone. It really, really hit me hard in the fact of, I don't know what I'm going to do, and I miss it, and it was really scary actually. But the saving grace really for me was, from my first few jobs in the West End, I've always taught. So I've always taught at colleges, and actually when I did Mary Poppins, I got into teaching at colleges like Guildford School of Acting, Erskine Academy, Mount View, these sort of big colleges. I started to sort of get in with these colleges, and I was teaching quite regularly. And if it wasn't for that, I don't know what I would have done, Martin, because again, I missed it. I was missing it. I was missing that thrill of creating, going into work, being in a studio, and it was sort of like, oh my goodness, we're at home and we can actually work from home. Well, I didn't think at that point we could work from home. So yeah, it was very scary.
But you have to adapt. I think most people have done that. Whatever your career is at the moment, more and more people are working from home in everything, aren't they? But I've got this image of you, at home with a camera set up, doing Zoom classes or whatever in your living room, moving the furniture out of the way. Is that the way you've been working?
Yep. Yep. We've got our little regime, and as well, we were getting the house done as well at the time. So there was a point where it was just very stressful, but we moved the table, and then the sofa. We've got our little system, and it was the first time I was introduced to Zoom, and I thought, how is this going to work? But by goodness, it works, and I've actually been busier than ever, teaching and doing workshops, and actually it's incredible to see how many people are still out there wanting to train and are hungry for it. So I've sort of been in demand more than ever.
Well,
it's been incredible.
That is credit to you, and I've had the opportunity to work with you a couple of times. You are a joy to work with, but it's that work ethic and your own positivity that will always make the best of a bad job, and that's credit to you, really, isn't it?
Well, I think, and I always preach, I've done quite a few Q&As as well during this year, and they say, what? I'm like, work ethic. Work hard, be a nice person. It goes a long way, doing those things. And I could never have sat down. I'm not that sort of person over this last year and just thought, well, there's nothing I can do. I've thought of ways to do this. I've been involved with many companies during this year, and I've just worked really, really hard. And at times it has been hard, but it's much more satisfying what you get out of it, and you're inspiring people and helping people, and that's all I want to do. And it helps me as much as I'm helping people. It's helping me as well, just to get up every day and know that I've got something to be getting on with to help me mentally as well.
Now, in the first of these episodes, I spoke to Steve Bowden. Steve and Sarah, of course, are Imagine Theatre, and I talked to Steve about working together as a couple, because their life he described as a bit of a pantomime in itself. But I mentioned you got married a couple of years ago. How did you and Alex meet? Is there a story there? Were you on stage together or something?
We met when we did Legally Blonde at the Savoy, and he was playing Emmett and I was dance captain on the show, and I was so focused, Martin, and I was single at the time, but I was very focused, and I was like, it was a big job for me. The Americans had came over, I was so focused on that, but during the run we got together, and we've obviously been together since. That's like 11 years now we've been together. Wow. And obviously we got married about 2.5 years ago, so it's just, and I always thought I'll probably never end up settling down with an actor, and what happens? I married an actor.
Yeah. Well, how challenging is that anyway? Because and he, incidentally, I think he's Canadian, isn't he? He's from Montreal, I think.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
that has no bearing. But of course, when you're being pulled in so many different ways, because you'll be working on different shows, maybe in different cities, possibly even different countries, how challenging is that?
Well, it's funny because I think we both understand the industry, and we both understand the love that we have for it. So we've always been very open and honest and just said, look, if an opportunity comes up and you have to go away, you have to take that opportunity and go. We train so hard for this industry, for this career, and it's our passion. So like, for instance, when I did Bodyguard, I went to Korea for like 10 weeks. So I was and a lot of people would go, how do you do that and be away from each other? You just do it and you make it work, and thank goodness we have FaceTime and things like that now. But we're so supportive of each other's careers, and even though we're in the same industry, we're sort of on different paths. He's more of a lead actor, I'm more on the choreography creative side, so that's actually nice as well. So there's no like competitiveness between us, and we've got different paths, but for sure I think we understand what we put into this, and I don't think like the normal. Even I try and tell my parents, but they don't quite understand how hard it actually is. So it's nice to have someone who understands.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd urge you, by the way, if you haven't heard of Alex Gaumont, to check out his website, because he's got a fantastic voice. He's a recording artist as well as a singer and an actor. So check it out. Now, 3 final questions for you, Jane. Starting with, what is your favourite panto title?
Oh, I think it's got to be Cinderella, because it was one of my favourite fairy tales as a child, and I think it's my favourite panto as well. I love Cinderella, so definitely that one.
The dynamics are slightly different in that you don't really have a dame, you have ugly sisters who are baddies but can be funny, but it works, doesn't it?
I think so. I mean, Have you done Cinderella
I've
before?
done Cinderella 4 or 5 times, yeah.
I mean, it must be great.
It's a totally different challenge. And I'll tell you the other thing about it is that the Ugly Sisters, very often, some of them actually will work together and do Cinderella every year. But for those of us who don't, when you come together and you're literally with a week and a half or whatever it is of rehearsals with somebody you've never worked with before, that chemistry is really important.
Oh my goodness, I bet, because it's literally like one line after the other. You've got to have that it's the comedy timing between the two of you.
And you've got to complement each other as well, whether it be physically, somebody tall, the other one short or whatever, you've got to be slightly different.
Definitely. And I think the Ugly Sisters, I think that's obviously in Cinderella, they're the iconic roles, but I also love the character of Buttons as well. You just want to give him a hug, don't you, and say it's going to be okay.
So away from, well, not necessarily from Panto, from any show, when has it not been all right on the night? When has it gone wrong?
Oh my goodness, well, I've got so many, but I want to stick to the Panto because, I've got a good one from Panto, and it's just, even just saying the words out loud, it's just ridiculous, because I was doing Panto in Birmingham, and one of the numbers, I was dressed as an orange mermaid, as you are. Orange, yeah, exactly. It's just ridiculous. I mean, this is our job. I get to say that I was an orange mermaid. I had an orange, the actual costumes were stunning. Orange wig, this beautiful orange leotard, and then the fin. And I started the number in a shell. I mean, it was incredible. It was actually incredible, but started in a shell with another girl, and I was sort of sitting, and she sort of had her fin over the top of mine, and she would get out, and we did have, obviously, our feet were, you could stand up because we had choreography. But one night, obviously, I'm in my shell, and Kimmy, she gets out, and she gets out fine. I got my heel caught in the fin, so I couldn't get out the shell. So I was stuck in this shell, and then everyone else starts the routine, and it's all going, and I'm like, oh my God, and I'm panicking now. I'm like, I can't get out my shell. It sounds ridiculous. Now, I eventually get out the shell, but by the time I get out the shell, it's pretty much the end of the number, and everyone has lost it by this point. So, not saying that we were unprofessional, but maybe that night, and it was Leslie Joseph, she was fronting the number at that point. We just all lost it. It was ridiculous. And yeah, so I had major malfunction as a mermaid.
I'll tell you what, very often though, you feel so bad and it's embarrassing at the time, and everybody else can find it funny except you, and sometimes it takes you a while to find the joke in it, doesn't it?
I know. It's something about Panto though that I think you just have to laugh, and you just go, if I can get away with it, it's going to be in Panto. I've got other ones where I did fall flat in my face in the middle of Drury Lane stage as an Oompa Loompa in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and because of the costume that I had on, I couldn't get up because you couldn't move in these costumes, so I had to roll off the stage. That one was slightly more embarrassing, but apparently the myth is if you fall on stage, you're going to perform there again. So good. There we go. I fall quite a lot. I fell all the time in Mary Poppins because it was quite slidey on the stage. So I'm going to apparently perform in all these theatres again. So
maybe that's why you're doing it, to make sure you go back. Yeah. Okay. And the final question is, obviously we're talking about Panto predominantly. Why is Panto so special to you? What's it mean?
I think it comes from my childhood. It was the first big thing that I did as a company, and I was 7 years old, and even going to Panto as a child. I think Panto is so special because if you're 3, if you're 33, if you're 63, if you're 93, everyone can go and enjoy it, and everyone can get involved. I love the audience participation feel. It's at Christmas, it's about family, it's about people coming together, and it's fun. And you just go and you laugh and you shout out and you see all the family getting involved, and I just think that's the special thing about Panto. And I think that's why even this year, 2020, not having Panto, it was just so strange not to have it. It just brings communities together, no matter who you are or where you come from, it brings everyone together, and I think that's what's special.
I think you're absolutely right. I think as well it brings together people from all different backgrounds in the entertainment industry.
Right.
And that brings new challenges to you. And I want to mention that because obviously, if you're choreographing professionally trained dancers, then that's a completely different kettle of fish to choreographing a panto company with, I don't know, jugglers, magicians, radio presenters, whatever, who can hardly put, 2 steps together. No names. That's down to you as well. You have to build up the people skills, the communication skills, don't you, to be able to... you do body conditioning and all sorts of other things as well. And that's developed over time, presumably.
Definitely, and I think that's the skill of being a choreographer, is to obviously, in pantos, there are all different levels, so you use the dancers to your advantage and you use them for all the great things that you want to do as a choreographer, and then for you might get a comedian who's never danced before, or or a newsreader, it could be anyone, but you have to challenge them. I think you still have to challenge them, but also not make them feel uncomfortable. But I think it's about, definitely, if you get those great songs in panto, just everyone getting up and having a go. And I think that's what it's about, and that's what you do as a choreographer. You try and cater for everyone and make everyone feel comfortable.
I think the bottom line is, from the audience's point of view, if they can see you having fun, then they will have fun as well.
That's it. And I think we did one in Leicester, and I remember, I think it was to The Greatest Showman. And I choreographed something, and I thought, if the audience can copy, that's brilliant. And you see the kids trying to do the moves, and I think that's so lovely that kids can go, and sometimes it's actually the first time that kids go to theatre.
Yeah.
So it's the first time they're involved in a live theatre show. So I think it introduces kids to that world, which I think's so special as well.
We are now in a sort of situation where, fingers crossed, we will be coming out of lockdown. We're going to see some performances, whether they be car parks, outdoors, or whatever initially. We're hopefully on a time scale now to see theatres slowly reopening. What does all that mean to you? Have you got any projects in the pipeline?
Well, firstly, it means it's so much. It's actually, I think it's a year now since the theatres went dark, and I think when that first show opens and when we're all back, I think we need it. We need it as a country. The theatre industry, it gives so much, and I think we've realised how much we've missed it now that it's been gone. I've got a few things, and I don't want to get too excited because you just never know, but I've certainly got a few things in the autumn coming up, and then hopefully panto as well. That's going to be something that I can't wait to get involved in this year. And then 22 is super, super busy. It's sort of like a lot of things have been put back, so 2022 is going to be super busy. We've got a brand new show, Identical, coming out, directed by Trevor Nunn. We had done all the workshops for it, so it was sort of ready to go. Styles and Drew, they've done the music for it. So that's been put back till 2022, and it's based on The Parent Trap, the movie. So yeah, some exciting new things definitely coming up. But we're just going to play it by ear and just take it step by step and do all the right things to get us back. But it's very, very exciting.
Well, listen, we'll keep our fingers crossed. We're all desperate to get back. Audiences are desperate to get back into theatres as well. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that will happen soon. Jane, it's been a delight. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll get to see each other soon.
Absolutely. Hopefully. I'm counting down. Believe you me, I'm counting down. Thank you so much once again. And that's about it from this episode. Next time, I'm going to be chatting to set and costume designer Mark Walters. Now, Mark is a professional theatre and television designer. He's worked in the industry for over 15 years on a host of shows across the UK and abroad, from musicals and plays right the way through to opera and pantomime. That's next time on Just Imagine. Don't forget, you can still listen to the first 2 episodes. Make sure you subscribe through your favourite podcast app. And that's it for now from me, Martin Ballard. I'll see you next time for episode 4 of Just Imagine, the brand new podcast series from Imagine Theatre. See you then.
Thank you for listening to the latest edition of Just Imagine, the podcast series from Imagine Theatre. And you can find out more by going to www.imaginetheatre.co.uk.